He said his wallet was private. He always kept it in the glove box, under a spare pair of sunglasses and an old parking pass from a job he didn't work at anymore. Said it made his back hurt if he sat on it. I never questioned it, just like I didn't question the dent in his rear bumper that seemed to change shape every month. But that morning, he asked me to grab the insurance card, and when I pulled the wallet out, something slipped. A photo. Glossy, creased, tucked behind a folded receipt for takeout I never ordered. The kind of photo you only get from a photo booth. Black and white strip, time-stamped. A baby, less than a year old, soft jawline, two big eyes. One hand curled in the air like it was about to wave. No label, no handwriting, just a child I didn't recognize. I stared at it too long. Long enough to memorize the pattern on the onesie, the way the kid's ears sloped at the top, exactly like his. He came out of the house holding his coffee like it was a shield. "Find it?" I held up the insurance card. "Yeah." Didn't mention the photo, didn't mention my pulse in my throat, just slid the wallet back slower than usual. He drove, talked about traffic, the weather, asked if I wanted bagels on the way. I said no. My mouth was dry. He told me once, on our second date, that he couldn't have kids, vasectomy at 28. Clean break, he'd said. No slip-ups, no oops. It was said like a virtue, like control. I didn't mind back then. I wasn't thinking about children. I was thinking about autonomy, safety. I thought he was being responsible. But now there was a photo in his wallet, and the way he drove that morning, eyes fixed too hard on the road, made me realize he was reciting something. A script, bagels, weather, traffic, like if he kept the tempo, I wouldn't ask the wrong question. I didn't, because the most dangerous thing in that moment wasn't what I didn't know. It was what he knew I might be starting to suspect. My name is Laurel. 35. I work in behavioral data analysis. I track patterns, digital trails, micro fluctuations in consumer habits, the kind of things you don't notice unless you're looking for misalignment. And the man I'd lived with for 3 years, the man who said he was sterile, who never wanted kids, who used words like legacy with contempt, had a baby's photo in his wallet. He didn't fumble. He didn't twitch. That's how I knew he was prepared. He had a narrative if I asked. Probably some story about a coworker's kid, or a cousin, or something charitable. He always had stories, so I didn't ask. We drove in silence after that, a silence padded with soft jazz and careful sips. When we got home, he kissed me on the cheek, said he had emails to send. I watched him disappear into his office. Then I walked to the kitchen, opened a drawer, pulled out the backup key to his glove box, and went back. The wallet was gone. Not moved. Gone. He'd taken it with him. Upstairs. Into the office. He never did that. That's when I knew. He wasn't being sloppy. He was recalculating. And I wasn't supposed to have seen that photo. I didn't confront him. Because confrontation requires vulnerability, requires emotional footing, and I'd just lost mine. Instead, I ran a quiet inventory. What else had I taken at face value? His work trips, always solo. His disdain for social media kept me from tagging him in anything. His vague stories about bad blood in his family kept us from holiday visits. Every one of those quirks had felt like boundary setting, personal maturity. Now they felt like scaffolding. He'd built a whole life that floated just above mine, and I'd called it stability. That night he made dinner. Pasta, garlic bread, his fallback when he thought I needed comfort. He poured red wine into a glass I didn't ask for and said, "Rough day?" I nodded. He smiled. I think he thought it was over. That's the problem with liars. They forget that silence can be surgical. After he fell asleep, I opened my laptop and searched for reverse image lookup tools. Uploaded a scan of the photo. Nothing. Too small, too obscure. So I tried something else. I pulled up our joint cloud folder, the one we barely used, searched for any image with similar EXIF data, found one, from 18 months ago. A blurred background, but there it was again. Same baby, same blanket. Caption: too sweet. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a meme. It was a message, sent to a private album I didn't know he had access to. I clicked on the album title. It was named J-M Archive. 2 initials, no dates. The first image? A baby with a woman. Head turned, face blurred, but the hair was unmistakable. My cousin, Morgan, the one who always joked that she and I had similar taste in men. I stared at that photo until my eyes blurred. And then I knew. He wasn't just a liar. He was a father. He was a predator. And I'd just found the edges of a much bigger pattern. I closed the laptop. Didn't cry. Just stared out the window at the neighbor's porch light blinking in the dark. He'd told me he was sterile. What he meant was, "You'll never ask me for more," but I wasn't asking anymore. I was preparing. The next morning, I left before he woke up. No note, no explanation. Just a quiet door latch and keys in my palm. I told him I had a client meeting in Salem, said I'd be gone all day. He didn't ask questions. That was the thing about liars. They love when you mirror their indifference. It makes you predictable, manageable. I drove 2 hours to see Morgan. I hadn't seen her in months. By her design, not mine. Ever since she started a new relationship, she'd gone off-grid, skipped family events, dodged texts. She said she was busy, focused, in love. Now I knew why. She answered the door with a diaper over one shoulder. The baby was teething. He looked just like the one in the photo, full cheeks, wide-set eyes, a half-moon dimple that only appeared when he drooled. He looked like him. Morgan froze when she saw me. I smiled. "You always said we had similar taste." She stepped aside slowly, like she hadn't decided whether I was the threat or the mirror. "Did he tell you?" "No," I said. "His wallet did." She didn't speak, just let the silence hang between us like humidity. Then she said, "It wasn't supposed to happen." I walked in. Her living room was covered in soft toys, folded laundry, and a faint smell of formula. A family, carefully built, or at least propped up. I sat down. She offered tea. I declined. Then I said it straight. "How long?" She didn't lie. 2.5 years. That meant he was with me when it started. "Does he support the baby?" I asked. Her eyes flared. "Financially? Yes, but not fully. He said it was complicated." Of course he did. He always made his mess sound like someone else's fault. I looked around the room. There were no pictures of the baby's father, no signs of a co-parent, just Morgan, a crib, and the polite fiction that some man had vanished without a trace. I pulled out my phone, opened the cloud folder, showed her the sonogram, the photo, the folder labeled J-M Archive. Her face cracked. "He said it was gone, deleted." "He lied," I said. "Of course he did." She sat down hard. I didn't comfort her, because we weren't on the same side anymore. We weren't even in the same category. She had made her choice. I was dealing with the fallout. "You knew he was with me," I said. She hesitated. Then, "At first, no." Then, "Yes. But he said it wasn't serious, that you didn't want a family, that you were cold." That last word sat heavy between us. Cold. The word he used when I set boundaries, when I asked questions, when I didn't fall over myself to soothe his ego. He weaponized that label, and she believed him. I stood. "You need to get legal protection," I told her. She blinked. "What?" custody, documentation, visitation rights, because the moment you stop being convenient, he's going to vanish from this kid's life like he never existed. She looked down at her son. "He loves him," she whispered. "No," I said. "He loves control." She didn't argue. I left with one goal: DNA. He was careful, slippery, but he wasn't digital proof. That night, I waited until he was asleep and pulled a toothbrush from the bathroom cup, dropped it in a sterile bag. I'd already called the lab, expedited service. They just needed the sample. 2 days later, I dropped it off. 3 days after that, I had confirmation. He wasn't just the father of Morgan's child. He was the father of 2 others, both listed in the same system, born within a 5-year window. Different mothers, different states. One listed under a paternity suit he'd lost in California, another under a sealed agreement in Arizona. I cross-referenced the legal filings. He hadn't just lied about being sterile. He'd used that lie to avoid responsibility over and over again. He didn't want to not have kids. He just didn't want to be accountable for them. I opened a new folder on my drive, labeled it J, Pattern of Deceit. Inside, 3 birth records, 2 lawsuits, 1 photo. The next part wasn't revenge, it was strategy. I booked a consult with a family attorney, told them the truth. Not to sue, not yet. I wanted leverage. Because if he'd built a life on deception, I wanted to hold the thread that could unravel every stitch. I didn't explode, didn't accuse. I simply waited until he said something I could use. It came 1 week later. He walked into the kitchen and said, "You've been quiet. Everything okay?" I nodded. "Just thinking about the future." He smiled. "Our future?" I smiled back. "Sure. Because liars crave affirmation. They need your silence like oxygen." I was done being his oxygen. I was becoming his suffocation. He handed me a glass of wine that night, said he wanted us to reconnect. Poured it carefully, like he was offering peace instead of sedation, like the problem was emotional distance, not deception, not betrayal, not 3 unacknowledged children. I accepted it, let it sit untouched beside my plate, because in that moment, he wasn't the man I loved. He was a case study, and I was gathering evidence. "Have you ever thought about kids again?" I asked, eyes steady. He tensed, just slightly. "Not really. I mean, with everything that happened, I thought we were on the same page." "What page is that?" He smiled. "That we're enough. That we don't need more." It was almost poetic how quickly he fell into the script. He wasn't just lying, he was rehearsing. Practiced, smooth. The kind of deceit that only comes from long-term repetition. I changed the subject, asked about work. He talked for 20 minutes straight, didn't notice I hadn't touched the wine. After he fell asleep on the couch, mid-rant about a client, I took his phone again. This time, I didn't go for photos or emails. I checked his cloud backups, found an auto-synced folder labeled Papers. Inside were scans of legal correspondence, a child support notice from Fresno County, a cease and desist from someone named Erica M., a blurred-out ultrasound from 3 years ago, dated, labeled with the initials AS. That was the final proof. 3 women, 3 timelines. 1 lie repeated across them all. I can't have children. I uploaded everything to the archive, then I made 3 copies, 1 for my attorney, 1 for the court system's reporting portal, and 1 on a drive I kept in my purse. You don't expose liars like this in private. You wait until they feel safest, most celebrated, and then you open the floor. The opportunity came sooner than expected. A family reunion. My father's side. An annual summer cookout in coastal Washington. Everyone would be there, including Morgan. including him. He didn't want to go at first, said it felt tense, said Morgan made him uncomfortable. I told him it would be good for us, a chance to start fresh. He liked that. He liked any story where he could be seen as the victim of awkward circumstances. He liked being forgiven before he confessed. We drove up together. I packed light, but I brought the drive. The cookout was held at my aunt's beach house, open patio, grill going, kids running in the grass. Morgan was already there when we arrived. She didn't look at me. Didn't need to. We'd already said everything that mattered. He clocked her, tensed up. I wrapped my arm around his waist and whispered, "Just smile." He obeyed. Because control doesn't always look like screaming. Sometimes it looks like quiet compliance from a man who doesn't know he's already lost. After dinner, someone brought out a projector for home videos, a nostalgic tradition. That was my moment. I waited until everyone was gathered. Cousins, aunts, the older relatives who still believed in printed calendars and rotary phones. Then I stood and said, "Before we watch Grandpa's camping trip, I added a quick tribute." He looked at me, curious, then cautious. I clicked play. Slide 1. The wallet photo, zoomed in, time-stamped, metadata highlighted. Slide 2. DNA test results, lab certified, a match to the child Morgan held. Slide 3. Court filings from Fresno, child support claim, case number intact. Slide 4. Erica M.'s affidavit. Handwritten note at the bottom, he said he was sterile. Slide 5. My voice, recorded on my phone, asking him last winter, "Do you ever want to try for kids?" His voice, soft, smug. "Can't." "Medical thing. You knew that." The screen went black. Silence. He didn't move. Morgan did. She stood up, handed her baby to our aunt, and walked over to him. Slapped him once, flat and final, then walked out. He turned to me, face blank. "You set me up." "No," I said. "You built this all by yourself. I just turned on the lights." The family looked around, confused. Then slowly it sank in. His parents left without a word. My cousin muttered, "What the hell, Jason?" He tried to explain, fumbled for excuses. "It's more complicated than—" "No," I said, standing. "It's not." I left him there, surrounded by food, laughter, memories, and none of it his anymore. Because people like him don't lose everything in one blow. They rot slowly, from silence, from exposure, from truth echoing louder than anything they can spin. And I was done spinning. I didn't go home with him. I drove back alone, windows down, cold air cutting through the heat of what I'd just done. He called, 6 times. I didn't answer, not because I was afraid of confrontation, because I wanted his panic to marinate. Let him stew in the silence he'd created. The next morning he was at my door, no warning, no flowers, just that face, smug, shaken, simmering with an arrogance that thought it could still win. "You humiliated me," he said. I looked at him, calm, steady. "You lied. That was private. What you showed. And what you did wasn't?" He shifted, tried a softer tactic. "You don't understand how hard it was, how scared I was that you'd leave if you knew." "I might have," I said, "but at least that would have been honest." He stepped forward like he might touch me. I stepped back. "You said you were sterile." "I thought I was, back then." "Number, you didn't. You said it after every child, and you said it while hiding them." His hands twitched, almost a shrug, almost a plea. "I didn't want to lose you." "You never had me." He dropped the act. "So what now? You ruin my life and walk away?" I tilted my head. "Number. I'm not walking." I pulled a file from behind the door, legal documents, custody petitions, DNA evidence attached, witness testimony from the women he'd left in the wake of his lies. "This isn't just personal anymore," I said. "It's strategic." He scanned the top page, his face drained. "I'm not trying to raise your kids," I clarified, "but I am protecting their mothers. From you, from this pattern. You don't have any right—" "I do," I cut in sharp, "because you made me part of the pattern, because I have proof, because silence would make me complicit." He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He just stood there, the weight of the fallout finally cracking his posture. "What do you want?" he asked. There it was, the question liars ask when truth finally corners them. I didn't say revenge. I said leverage. Because it wasn't about punishing him. It was about protecting others from the performance. I gave him options. Voluntary admission of paternity to all 3 children, publicly documented. Financial support, with full legal acknowledgement of prior deceit. A statement written and signed, recusing himself from any future parental claims with me or anyone in my family. "You sign these," I said, "and I walk away. No charges, no contact. No redemption tour, just quiet erasure." He looked at the pages again, and then he signed, not because he was sorry, because he knew I would win, because he could feel the spotlight shifting, turning him from misunderstood to malicious, and he'd always feared exposure more than accountability. When he left, I didn't lock the door. I just closed it. Hard. That night I posted the statement, redacted for the public but clear enough to warn others. He didn't comment. He couldn't, because the truth had already calcified, and so had my silence. The family fallout wasn't loud, it was surgical. My aunt called first, voice brittle, already armed with justifications before I said a word. "You really blindsided Jenna," she said. "She's a wreck." I waited, let the silence press. She added, "It's not what you think." I asked, "Did she know?" A beat, then, "Not at first." But she did now. And that was enough. Jenna didn't call me. She didn't have to. Her silence was its own confession, cowardice wearing the mask of distance. We'd shared summers, secrets, bedrooms at family reunions. Now she shared a child with the man who said he couldn't father any. The cousin I trusted most had chosen to raise a lie. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I was cold, because betrayal doesn't need volume, it needs precision. I gathered everything, texts, emails, receipts, pieced together the full picture. Who knew what, when, who benefited, who looked the other way. Jenna's son, 2 years old, dates lined up with a trip they'd both taken, Vegas, a cousin's wedding. She'd laughed about it later, said she hooked up with someone wild. She never said it was him, not once. But the baby photo in his wallet wasn't just a souvenir. It was an artifact of a secret too heavy to carry casually. I sent a certified letter to Jenna. Simple, unemotional. "I know, and I have proof. You don't owe me an apology. You owe yourself the truth." She never replied, but her silence spread. The family group chat dried up, birthday invites vanished. My mother, bless her restraint, only asked once if I'd considered letting it go. I hadn't, because letting it go meant letting it repeat. So I filed one more document, an ethics complaint with the fertility clinic where he'd faked his sterility records. Turns out he'd signed under false pretenses, claimed medical sterility for sympathy, for access, for manipulation. The clinic launched a quiet investigation. Jenna's name surfaced. The network of lies tightened. Meanwhile, I began volunteering, quietly, at a local women's legal center. I didn't share my story, just listened, took notes, connected dots. Because what happened to me wasn't rare. It was systemic. Weaponized fertility, weaponized secrecy, men creating legacies they never intended to own, women left to sort the wreckage. I started compiling anonymized data, building a case study, not for court, for change, and for every lie he'd told, I crafted a matching truth. Clean, hard, unignorable. The truth didn't scream. It documented, and it grew. The public unraveling wasn't planned. It started with an upload, a quiet one. I submitted my case, stripped of names, to a medical ethics journal that had recently started covering reproductive fraud. I didn't expect them to publish it. I just wanted it on record, in the system, documented. But they did publish it. And the story caught fire. It spread through forums first, women in IVF groups, Reddit threads, survivor circles. They called it the sterile myth case. Said it confirmed what many suspected but couldn't prove, that reproductive deceit wasn't just personal, it was systemic. Anonymous emails poured in, from women, from partners, from whistleblowers. They shared stories of fake vasectomies, forged medical forms, hidden families. One even shared a scanned copy of a donor registry with his name on it, cross-checked against another baby photo. Not mine, but close. My cousin's. It wasn't just me. He'd done it before. I archived everything, created a private server, labeled every folder by year, by victim, by location. I wasn't building a revenge file. I was mapping an architecture, the kind law enforcement doesn't ignore. When I sent the link to my attorney, her response was immediate. This is enough. We go public. So we did. Not on Instagram, not with a dramatic post, with a press release and a press conference, framed not as scandal, but as a call for legislative reform. Headline: Victim of reproductive deceit speaks out, calls for DNA consent reform. And right there on the podium, flanked by 2 advocacy lawyers, I told my story. Short, controlled, cold. He said he was sterile. He wasn't. He fathered 3 children, 1 with my cousin. He falsified records. I documented everything. And now, we're done pretending this is rare. That clip aired on the evening news. He didn't respond. Jenna did. She posted a photo of her son with the caption, "Some people are just bitter." The internet didn't buy it, because alongside that post, someone shared the clinic's statement, the one confirming falsified medical forms, confirming sperm samples matched multiple known cases under dispute. One comment said it best. She didn't just raise a child, she raised a lie. And the most brutal part? I hadn't lifted a single finger toward her. Truth did the work. I kept my focus on what mattered, protection. I filed for preemptive guardianship rights. No, not over her son. I didn't want custody. I wanted legal insurance. If another child surfaced tied to my family, I wanted a clause in place preventing him from claiming paternal influence, from walking into another woman's life years later and demanding access, because people like him never stay gone. They orbit, waiting. But I'd built a firewall, the kind built with facts, not fire. I never told the story again. The records did it for me. His name came off the files. Mine stayed. I didn't burn the past. I logged it, under resolved. Now when people ask what I teach, I say one thing. Always check the paperwork. Because I don't explain. I document. He exists now where all fraud belongs, in a system that doesn't forget, not in memory, in metadata.